Everyone for having me. Yeah, my name is Claire Delaney Pope. I'm Chief Privacy and Assurance Officer and also Data Protection Officer at South London and Maudsley. So I've got 10 minutes or so, and what I really want to do is sort of have a quick discussion around what we're doing in SLAM, which I'll now refer to as SLAM because it's easier to say. And also just looking at those really high level questions that as Caldicott Guardians you may want to start looking at. And I think as this goes on, you'll see that they get quite granular, but it's just sort of trying to look at the more high level ones. Next slide, please. Thank you. So just a quick overview about SLAM. I think, most people already know we're a mental health trust in South East London. We do also provide national services, and we're also established as a research centre. We've got a collaboration with the BRC, and we have the IOPPN and attached to King's College London as well. So lots of work in the research and innovation area. So we are very aware that we could use AI here for not just our direct care purposes, but there's lots of secondary use purposes that were coming through into sort of our governance streams before we even had governance set up. Next slide, please. Thank you. So just a little bit about our AI governance in SLAM. As I say, we were getting requests to use AI way before we even had the governance set up, which was always quite worrying. I think this was very new in our area in IG, and it would also be sort of for Caldicott Guardians and our digital teams as well. So we took quite a cautious approach to this AI governance model, and I think it's fair to say what we wanted to establish is not one department or one person is responsible for this. This is a collaboration of several areas, and it has to be sort of built as a governance model by all. So we collaborated with clinicians, clinical safety absolutely in there as well, digital services, information governance, and our Caldicott Guardian. And what we did was we developed this structure. So we had an AI framework, which we can't take credit for. We have actually adopted the London AI framework, which we felt was quite nice and consistent for our patients because most of our trusts should be under the same framework. And then underneath that, we set an AI policy. And that policy is around two things really, mainly how you request for us to use AI in the trust. As I say, with the research that we have and the collaborations that we have, these things are coming through quite a lot. So one, how do you request it? And two, how do you use it? Now, the first part of that, we established an AI governance board, and that's your front door to come in to talk to us about a piece of work that you want to do. And then what we have is actually a sign off from our digital board. And there's a reason for that. So AI governance is very blue sky thinking, and you come in and you talk about what you want to do and how you want to do it. And our digital board's more of that sense check, because what we don't really want is that duplication. So are we going to have several products that do very similar things? And that's where we would take it into digital board to just to establish, is this the right thing for the trust? Do we have the right funding for it? Because quite a lot of these AI functions that you're putting in place, you need a lifetime funding, unless you're doing a pilot or a proof of concept. In our trust, and I think it is quite unusual, but in our trust, our digital board is chaired by a Caldicott Guardian. So they have oversight in both areas as well. The reason that I say duplication is really important for us to look at is because we recognise that there's an impact to governance if you're trying to manage several products, because with managing several products, you have to manage several training programs, and that for us in a smaller trust can become quite problematic because you're trying to ensure everyone can use the same product. You don't want 10 products that are going to do the same thing if you can use one well. So that's stuff we look at as well. It's not to say that we won't use it, but it's to say we really scrutinise, could you use a product slightly differently for the same outcome? Next slide, please. So as I said at the beginning, we have taken a very cautious approach to what we do in SLAM. First thing I've put there though is natural language processing, because I just wanted to kind of note that AI isn't new. I mean, what we're trying to do in direct care absolutely is, but the concept of AI have been around for several years, and in our research world, we've used NLP for years and years now. I would say just under a decade here. And that's because in mental health, we have lots of unstructured data. So something like NLP is really effective on pseudonymized data for research purposes. So we have been using AI in the trust. However, now what we've done is we've moved on to how can we use AI for, at first we're looking at for corporate services, for those administrative burdens. And that felt like the right place for us to start. So what we did was we collaborated with Microsoft, and we used Copilot in the first instance to be looking at this, and had a very closed pilot and had a number of licenses, and asked key people in the trust to use these, and just to let us know what the feedback of how productive it was to use them. So we automated administrative tasks, and that's things like taking minutes and producing papers. It's really efficient for those things when the training's correct. And then what we've got now is we've now got another pilot around wait times. So that's how we're doing it, really cautious, looking at these pilots. Does it work? Does it not? And at the moment, again, we're using Copilot for this, although we're also now looking very early stages at Heidi Health and Tortoise as well. Next slide, please. So that's just, as I say, very high level overview of what SLAM is doing at the moment. I think the key takeaways there for us is we just felt that it had to be a collaboration of several services together in order to build this governance model, and it's built with the patient's trust in mind, that we've got a scrutiny for all aspects of this. So with that in mind, I did have a think, like, what would the key questions be for Caldicott Guardian? And I was thinking this more in terms of what would I ask my Caldicott Guardian to be looking at if I was to bring a new AI product to him for review. So next slide, please. Thank you very much. So I guess the first question that came to mind for me was, is there a clear justification for data processing according to the Caldicott principles? Quite a mouthful, isn't it, really, for a key question? And these were the things that came up. I'm not going to go into these in detail because we will be going into the principles later, but this, I thought, was just the first question that came to mind. Can you align this to your Caldicott principles? I'll leave that there for a minute just so people can read. Okay, just mindful of time. So next slide, please. So my next thought was, how is patient data being used? And this for me around is more sort of, what format can this be used? Because I think what we find with AI quite a lot is, well, it's for direct care, so it has to be identifiable data. But does it? And I think the challenge is very much there. Does this need to be used for does it always have to be identifiable? So if you're doing a proof of concept and this is feasibility and you want to see if the product works, can that be protected with pseudo data that maybe you can re-identify afterwards? So I see it too often where it's AI, it has to be identifiable. So I would always say that's the first challenge. Can it be anonymized? Can it be pseudonymized? And I think that's question number one. Second question, I think massively important, and one I think is going to be all of our biggest challenge, especially in IG and for Caldicott Guardians, is that data minimization for AI, because what you'll hear is that you need more data than necessary because you're trying to train the model. So I've had experience of this myself when talking to somebody that wants to bring AI in. We need all the data. Why? Well, we don't know, because we're training the model, but we need all the data. That's a real big challenge to justify under GDPR, and for you to justify your data minimization. Now, I'm not saying in all cases you can't use all the data. I'm sure you can justify, but I'm just saying the challenge here for me would be, is it a proof of concept? Is it waiting lists in our ADHD area? So why would you need the whole CAMS data, for example? So these are questions that we should be challenging back, not just accepting, well, we have to train a model, so training a model is big data. It isn't always. And then my last one, and I don't think this is for the Caldicott Guardian to go and investigate themselves, but it's an assurance. The security measures around this, has that been done? And I would imagine that you'd be requesting a DPIA anyway, but there's other security measures that would need to be in place for this for you to be assured. Next slide, please. And again, I think this is a very new question for all of us, not necessarily biased. I think we all understand what that means, but now we're looking at bias in models that are predicting. I mean, this is very difficult, and I wouldn't sit here and pretend that I'm an expert in this at all, but these are questions that we need to be asking. Is there a bias in the data? Have you tested this? Because you can ask that and the question could be, well, no, but has it been tested? And I think that's the question. Number one, has it been tested prior to you using it? But also, how are you assured going forward that the model is not going to be biased at some point? Is there testing going forward? Now, the answer to that is yes. A lot of these models, reputable models, will have an ongoing testing that you can see that assurance. So they're two very key questions that should be asked. And if you don't have that assurance in there, then I think that would be one of the risks that you would want to manage going forward. Next slide, please. And yeah, so this is my last slide. So I've gone through that quite quickly, but overall, again, a big question. Your processes around transparency, accountability, and oversight. So in terms of accountability and oversight, I've just shown you how SLAM's done that in the previous slides around our governance, around our digital board, and that oversight loops back into that governance, that AI governance committee. Because also what you want to see is how efficient and productive are these models that you are putting in. So you do want that assurance that that's coming back in and someone is analysing that to make sure that this is actually doing what you want it to do. And I think the most important thing that I'm going to leave you with, the question that I would be asking, has PPIE been conducted here, whether that's in your organisation you've done one big piece around this, or whether you're getting your patients involved. And one of the things on our governance group that I should have said at the start was we do have patient involvement there, so we can get feedback, because every case is slightly different. I can ask the question, what do you think of AI? But what we want to do is ask that tailored question for when you're using it for a specific purpose. So have your PPI been done? Is your transparency in place? And do you think that are you assured that it will not impact the trust of your patients by implementing this model? So I'll leave you with that final question, which I think is the most important. We're going on this massive AI journey, which I'm very excited about. However, we need to make sure that we've got the public trust in doing so, and having these governance measures in place and that co-collaboration in order to achieve that. So that's everything from me. So I'm going to hand to Helen. Thank you very much, Helen.
Thank you very